What's up, everybody? It's Frederick Douglass Bussey. You are tuned into episode 67 of the Power Lunch podcast. And today we're going to be talking about why slowly is the fastest way to get where you want to go. Power Lunch podcast starts right now. So I'm excited to talk about today's episode, today's subject matter, because there's been a lot that's been going on in the news, and I think it kind of underscores the point that we want to make today. And so personally, I'll tell you a story. There's a young man that I've known for a long time, grew up in the church that I attend here in Atlanta. And I've known him from a young age, know his whole family, everybody, right? And so he graduated from high school and kind of went on his own path and kind of went astray, right? And so the biggest challenge was that he got in with the wrong crowd and started to sort of go astray, and he ended up getting in some trouble, some really bad trouble. And so he got arrested with the law. Actually has been in jail for about a year, and this morning was sentenced to 10 years in jail. And it's really sad because he had this path that he was going on, and it felt like he was going to be so much better. And he had a loving family, stable. He didn't have to make the choices that he did, but he chose that path, and now it's landed him in a situation where now he's going to pay for it with the next 10 years of his life. And how does this relate to business? Well, I remember I was listening to another podcast about a guy who was in jail for 20 plus years. And he talked about how he had come up in this life of robbery and jacking people on the streets and doing all kinds of things. And he was saying that the funny thing about a robbery is that it's over in an instant. You know, it takes 60 seconds or less to rob somebody. You get in, you get out. But that 60 seconds cost him 20 years of his life. And this young man that I know, this time has cost him, years of his life, 10 years of his life, for a split-second decision with the wrong people. And our lives are made up of choices and instances and decisions that cost us over time. And I'm looking back over the news. If you're in the crypto space at all, or maybe if you're in the financial markets, you certainly heard about what happened with FTX, the crypto trading exchange that has gone bankrupt. And the CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, who was on a whirlwind press tour over the last 6 months doing different podcasts and interviews and things of that nature, and now has suddenly disappeared. He's in the Bahamas. It was rumored he was flying to Argentina. He lost $16 billion worth of his net worth in less than a week, a few short days. And the entire platform, which was rumored to be around $32 billion in net worth, it just evaporated overnight, essentially. And if you were watching the Super Bowl last year, they had numerous Super Bowls. They were tied to certain people who had equity, such as celebrities like Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen, his ex-wife, Steph Curry. They had naming rights to different stadiums. They were attached to the Golden State Warriors and Miami Dolphins, I believe. So all these different people they were attached to, there was billions of dollars in equity and at stake in terms of partnerships and things of that nature. And it all evaporated overnight. And Sam Bankman-Fried started this company, FTX, on the heels of launching another company called Alameda Research. And Alameda Research was a company that was founded basically based on Hi, Amy. Good to see you. Perfect timing for your lunch. Yeah, that's why we call it Power Lunch. Um, Alameda Research was Sam Bankman-Fried's initial project. We started when he was very young, in his early 20s. And essentially what he was supposed to have done was to find arbitrage between Bitcoin and overseas. I think it was Japan. Uh, and Bitcoin, which is sold here in America. And so he would sell that and resell it on the market, buy it here, resell it overseas, and essentially take a fee or a cut of that to be able to make a profit, and then rinse and repeat. And supposedly he made about $1 billion doing this, and that was supposed to be the funding for launching FTX, the platform. Now it's coming out that the entire thing was essentially a Ponzi scheme. It devolved into a Ponzi scheme. It was really a lot of fraud involved in it overall. And so the reason why I bring that up is because it becomes a prime example of what happens when you build a business the wrong way for the wrong reasons. And many people are doing that in their businesses, and they don't really understand it until all the dominoes start to tumble down and it's too late. And so the lessons that we can learn can be actually effective at the beginning. If we reverse engineer what went wrong, then how can we avoid those mistakes in our thinking going forward? I entitled this episode today, Slowly is the Fastest Way, because there is and I wish I knew who originated this quote. I don't, and I'll try and find that and share that with you later. But there's a quote that's going around in circles that I run in, and it simply says that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And essentially that that quote really means that when you focus on doing things correctly, slowly, you can learn how to do them smoothly. And when you do it smoothly, then you don't make the mistakes that cost you time in the long run. And the mistake that people make is that they think they have to do everything now in order to be able to be successful, because now is all they have. Now is all that matters. And there is a sense of urgency of moving now because we do only have the present. But I always talk about having the luxury of time, creating with the luxury of time on your side. That's why Amy I often say you need to slow down to speed up. Exactly. And that works in so many different aspects of life. It works in so many different aspects of business. It's just the process of understanding that speed is optimized when you are not getting in your own way, when you're not making the wrong mistakes, when you're not going in the wrong direction. Think if you've ever been headed on a trip somewhere and you made a wrong turn, and that wrong turn can end up costing you 5 minutes, or it can end up costing you an hour, depending on what happens in the interim. And so taking the time on the front end to be able to make the right decision, scratch that, taking the time to understand why you're making the decisions that you're making, why you're taking the path that you're taking, why you're taking the actions that you're taking is super, super important. And too many people are simply bypassing that because they're either taking the fastest road of conventional wisdom, they are following the crowd, they are allowing their emotions to dictate the decisions that they're making. And so they're not aware enough of the slowest way, the smoothest way to make progress. One of my quotes, I'm known for tagging all of my videos and all of my posts with ever forward. Ever forward, I break it up into two parts because ever means continuously, consistently, right? The consistency is the element that allows you to be able to move and to grow and to scale. Forward is the direction, which means that it's a binary decision in that I'm only looking at what is going to move me forward, not sideways, not backwards, not up or down, simply forward. Forward is the progress that I'm attempting to make with every decision that's going along. My co-host has joined me for another edition. We're talking to all the people now. Okay. All right. So when you are focused on moving smoothly, um, I'll give an example when it comes to like my podcast. So this podcast, we're on episode 67 over the past several years. And so the idea was that now we're going to start doing live every week because it commits to a certain outcome. The outcome is the consistency of what happens over the next 2 to 3 years. I made a commitment in my head that I'm going to just build this thing over the next few years and see what happens, right? Because there's a certain outcome that I want to affect by having the podcast. Yes, to promote my business. Yes, to be able to do certain things, but there's a positioning that I'm working towards that I want to be able to have. And that takes time. Can't do it overnight. I can't do 100 episodes of this podcast in a week. I can't have 100,000 subscribers to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, by the way. But I can't subscribe to the YouTube channel, have 100,000 subscribers overnight. It will be great. It's possible that at some point when I get enough critical mass, that will be a cascading effect. The dominoes will hit. But you can't count on the seismic events to move you forward. And you can't try to generate those in the beginning without having an understanding of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I always talk about the fact that you can have exponential results if you understand where to focus your intentions, where to be able to build your understanding of your efforts and how you can harness your gift and especially your gift to be able to create exponential results. But creating the exponential results and needing to create the exponential results are two different things, right? We don't want to create out of need. And when we are trying to build businesses because we need things immediately in the short term, we sacrifice what is possible in the long term. And if we're sacrificing the long term, it's costing us more. And often we find ourselves we're really working at a deficit to our health, a deficit to our relationships, a deficit to our business and our finances, because our unwillingness to invest in the long term will actually cost us over time and actually can help us to blow things up in the short term. So the thing about Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX and Alameda Research, his companies, is that Sam clearly was willing to commit fraud, was willing to steal from people in the short term to be able to leverage that in the long term. Meaning that he was willing to trade what was possible for him in 20 or 30 years for what he wanted right now. And how many of us are doing that in our businesses when we are chasing the rent for this month, chasing the expenses for this month, chasing the validation of people, the noises and the stories that we have in our head about who we have to be and what we have to be able to accomplish right now. And I was 20 years old once. I was 25 years old once. I remember those feelings. I remember those moments, right? And so there were certain decisions and mistakes that I made because I stumbled into thinking that I had to have it right now. I had to do certain things. But all of the best decisions that I've ever made that have played out over the course of my life have been because I was willing to take the long road. And the long road doesn't always end up being the longest. It doesn't always end up taking the most time. It doesn't always end up being that way. But when you are unwilling to do that, that's where you start to make the mistakes. Yes, Amy. Small daily distractions that have caused disarray in her business. Yes, often. Look, I remember when my coaches shared with me something that they heard from Alex Sharfin, who said that, things are always going to be on fire in your business. Something's always going to be broken. The key is understanding what to focus on and what not to. And very often what we do is we sacrifice the feeling of feeling better in the moment because I fixed this small problem versus understanding what is most important for the long run and staying committed to that regardless of how we feel about it emotionally. And very few people are willing to do that because it hurts in the short term to sacrifice for the long term. I hear a lot of people talking about delayed gratification, as that's the key to success, being disciplined. But I think it's less about delaying gratification versus and more about finding the gratification in focusing on the long term and using that long term focus to help you focus in the moment. Gary Keller, the author of The One Thing, the billionaire who started Keller Williams Realty, he has a quote that says, "The purpose of a goal is to keep you appropriate in the moment," which simply means that you know what you're doing from day to day or from moment to moment because you understand you're clearly focused on where you want to be in the future. What is the outcome that you're creating? And I ask my clients this all the time. I'll ask them, what are you out to create this week? And we ask the same question over and over again. And I remember one client one time, she said, why don't you switch up the question? I said, well, I don't have to switch up the question because the answer might be different. And it tells you something. The answer, it's less important about what the answer is than how you are focusing on the question, what you're getting from the question. Because if you're only focused on the question and say, I'm tired of answering this, then you're missing the point already, right? And if you feel like the answer is changing from week to week, maybe you're not clear on where it is you want to go. And I wonder what would happen. How many billions of dollars could have been saved if Sam Bankman-Fried had been able to just step back for a second and say, where do I really want to go in the long term? Why do I have to get there now? What's the hurry? Why are we in such a hurry to fix things, to get rich? People talk about building generational wealth, and then they want to do it overnight. And there's a very good saying that's been around for many years, which is easy come, easy go. If you watch the stock market over the trend of the last 100 years, even, you see a company that spikes up very, very quickly, you're going to see a almost immediate crash down the other side. Very, very, very rarely do companies spike up and then remain at a steady incline in terms of their growth. Because we don't learn lessons when we do things too quickly. We don't understand. And again, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And even a sharp trajectory will cause you more heartache, and even in the short term, because you have not learned how to manage that. There's a thing that that divers get when they descend into the ocean depths too fast, and it's called the bends, right? And basically, their blood, the oxygen in their blood, cannot coagulate correctly, so it doesn't circulate, and they actually end up suffocating from the inside, if you will. And that's really, really important to understand as an analogy for how a lot of times we're giving ourselves the bends because we're trying to go really, really fast. And imagine if I gave my daughter, my 4-year-old, the keys to my car and asked her to drive. She'd drive us straight off a cliff if she could reach the accelerator, right? Because she doesn't learn how to manage things. Who did I ask? Oh, I didn't ask anyone. I'm talking about you. You do not, and that's why you're not getting the keys. Amy says, know that you're going to disappoint people, but be mindful not to disappoint yourself. Feel good about your choices. Yeah. I think that the last part of that is the most important, Amy, is that we are struggling to feel good about our choices. We're struggling to feel good about our progress over time because we are struggling with that emotionally. It actually leads us to make poor decisions in the short term. So I'll leave it on this note here. Of course, I coach entrepreneurs and leaders, right? That's part of how we help people. But one of the things that, we want people to be able to do is understand the urgency of the future versus the comfort of the present. And it's really about a choice. I'm not saying that, okay, what a lot of people do is they say, well, I'm not willing to invest a certain amount of money. It's expensive to work with me. It's very, very expensive. But the reason why it's expensive is because the value over time is so great. And if I'm able to provide that, the clarity that we need to be able to move forward in that direction requires a level of patience. You can't get there overnight. And most people are not willing to sacrifice feeling better in the moment and dealing with the sacrifice and the doing the work over the long term. It doesn't, and here's the thing, it doesn't mean that you have to, but if you're not willing to, it will cost you. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Slowly is the fastest way to get to where you want to be. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this on LinkedIn or Facebook what your thoughts are, what you're discovering from this whole process. I want to thank Amy, especially, for riding shotgun with us today. For those of you who drop by for a second or whatever, or even longer, I salute you and I appreciate you. Please share this with someone that you know. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, smash the like button. Share this with someone that you know, another entrepreneur or someone that could use the gift of perspective on moving faster towards where they want to go, but having the willingness to go slowly to ensure that it's inevitable and not impossible. Hopefully this has been valuable for you. My name is Frederick Douglass Bussey. I'm the founder of Icon Status, and I am the host of the Power Lunch podcast. As always, ever forward.